Hey everybody, Courtney here, aka the okayest trail runner, living up to my name here today on the beautiful Columbine Lakes Trail just outside of Silverton and Ouray, Colorado. As you can see, this place is absolutely gorgeous, and I thought it was the perfect place to film an introduction to this video where I'm going to be walking you through the basics of how to run your first ultramarathon. So whether you've run marathons before, maybe you've attempted an ultra before, successfully or unsuccessfully, or you've never run a step in your life, I am here to tell you everything that I know about this incredible sport so you could experience incredible places just like this and run/hike them. So I hope that you appreciate the introduction to this video, the beautiful scenery, and all of the details that are to come. Thanks for watching. Okay, so what makes ultra running different than, say, running a marathon? Let's talk about that. A few things. First, as you can see, well, there could be a lot of climbing. It's not flat, and that just means, in addition to that, the ground is not pavement. You're gonna have rocks, you're gonna have roots, you're gonna have mud, you're gonna have snow, which is something I have on this trail that I'm hiking/running right now. So all that means is that, number one, trail running and ultra running takes a lot longer. You're going to have to slow down. So, going out for a 6-mile run, if you're running roads, well, maybe that means you could finish that in less than an hour. Trail running, it could take you, 2 hours, depending on the type of the trail. And if you're dealing with some stuff like what you see around me here. So because of the difference in time on feet, you have to pay attention to things like nutrition, right? Hydration. You'll see I'm loaded down with this pack, right? And that's because I'm out here doing about a 7.5-mile route. That's going to take me like 4 hours, right? And so I need to carry food. I need to carry water. I need to carry a water filter, right? In case I had to refill my bottles in one of these streams. So these are all things that, coming from road running, it's just not the same. It's just not the same as training for a marathon. In addition to that, number two, that means that there's going to be a lot of different interesting stressors put on your muscles, right? So road running, you can kind of just zone out, maybe listen to some music. You don't really have to pay attention to where you're putting your foot. You can see what I have here in front of me. Holy cow, right? Like, I really have to watch where I put my feet. I could be twisting an ankle on one of these rocks. So now all of a sudden, your tendon strength becomes so much more important, right? Tendons, ligaments, all those little stabilizer muscles that you don't really think about. When you're running on the road, your feet, how strong your feet are becomes super important, right? So these are all things that make trail and ultra running different. And what that means is that, outside of getting out there and running trails a lot, you're definitely going to want to get in the gym and do some strength work, right? Leg strength, making sure your hips are strong, right? Going up and down these hills, your quads are going to cramp up when you first start, right? All these little things that you really didn't have to worry about when you're road running. And I'll tell you that, when I first started trail running, I twisted my ankle a lot. So these are all things that you have to consider. You will get better and you will get stronger with practice, but you're going to make it even easier on yourself if you put in the time to do the strength work, particularly starting with your feet, okay? So we got time on feet that's different. We got the fact that you probably have to carry nutrition and hydration. We got the fact that you're climbing big hills. You're using all these stabilizer muscles that you don't usually use when you're road running. So all those things put together, mean that you can't just pick up a marathon training plan and expect to finish an ultra, in a very specific amount of time down to the minute, right? There's so many variables in addition to weather out here too. You never know what the conditions are going to be, especially in the mountains like where I am. They could change at the drop of a hat. So many things you have to consider. These are just a few things that make trail and ultra running different from road running that I want you to keep in mind as we continue on this video. Okay, so let's quickly talk about the gear that you need if you're thinking about running an ultra. Some of this is gonna be a little bit basic. I'm gonna talk about some basic gear that you need just for general trail running. And then specifically, if you're looking to do something that's ultra distance, like a 50K, this is what I'd recommend. Poles, not 100% necessary, but they might make you a little bit more comfortable if you are completely new to this. So, this brand, I don't exactly know how to pronounce it, Lakey, is a really well-known pole brand. They do a really great job, super lightweight. But you could go to an REI, pick up poles. Again, this is your comfort level. There is kind of a technique to running with poles. When I first started trail running, I did run with them a little bit, mostly just because I had some issues with balance and stability. But as I got better and stronger, I actually prefer running without them, as I find them to be a bit of a nuisance. I brought them with me today just because this trail had a ton of climbing and snowpack. Snow. I needed something to keep me stable in the snow. But let's go back to basics. Trail shoes. There are a ton of different brands. The best bet, again, go to a running shoe store or an REI, get fitted. Honestly, the trail shoe that feels the best is probably the best shoe for you. There are things to consider. I will do a separate video just on trail shoes. This is what happens. So stay tuned for that. But just know that in general, things to look for in trail shoes, you have lugs on the bottom. That's what helps you grip in mud and dirt and scree and loose rock. So there's different types of lugs and different depths that you might want to look at. Different levels of cushion. Something called a heel to toe drop, which is the differential, the height of the heel of the shoe compared to the toe. Anyways, there's a lot of details there, things you want to consider. I do recommend, if you're new to trail running, that you consider a shoe with a higher heel to toe drop. You'll hear about zero drop shoes, like the brand Ultra is known for this. That could be really hard on your Achilles and your calves. So I recommend, especially for beginners, find a higher drop shoe. So other essential gear, you will see the pack that I'm wearing. This is a great idea. I love, especially for considering an ultra distance, have a pack with a couple water bottles. So I've got these hard flasks is what I prefer. You're gonna see most packs nowadays come with soft flasks instead. I mean, that's down to personal preference. I would say buy a couple on Amazon, honestly. Try them on, see what feels best to you. You could also do a waist belt. One of my favorite brands is Ultra Aspire. They make a really good waist belt, so I highly recommend that, or a handheld water bottle. I prefer to keep my hands free, just personal preference. Sometimes I gotta use my hands, so that's definitely something to get to. Outside of those items, trail shoes, a pack, something to carry water in and food, optional poles, just obvious like sun protective gear, long sleeve shirts, which I am not doing a good job modeling today as I'm out here in the mountains in the sun, hat and sunglasses, all the basics. Just make sure you have your sun protection covered. And then of course, we'll talk about what you should carry in your pack later. All right, so let's talk about training for your first ultra. I know that's the biggest question that you have. And let's more specifically talk about what your fitness level should be when you're getting ready to go into a training cycle. Generally speaking, if you look at any ultra training plan online, let's say you want to do a 50K, most of those plans assume that you could run 10 miles on trail to start with. So if you're starting literally from couch to 50K, what I would recommend is, maybe spending a year at least, just kind of working up to that 5K on trail, that 10K on trail, work your way up to 10 miles, which I think is perfectly doable in a year's time frame. And, work your way up really slowly until you get to that point where you could run 10 miles on trail and be comfortable. And then after that point, I prefer longer training plans. So I would recommend doing something like a 20-week training plan, just to make sure you have a really slow ramp, you have the opportunity to take down weeks, you're not increasing your mileage every single day. So that's kind of a general idea of how long it would take you to go from ground zero to be ready to run and start your training cycle. I want to say again, if you're starting from zero fitness level, I would say 2 years is the safest bet. But if you have some fitness, maybe you run occasionally, maybe you could run roads, 10 miles on roads, maybe run a road marathon, you're in really great shape. If you could get that 10 miles on trail, you're ready to start your 50K or whatever ultra training plan. Okay, so let's talk about more specifically why do I say 20 weeks for a training plan for an ultra? A lot of this depends on which ultra you're doing, how experienced you are. Some of us, like if you've been running ultras for a while, you could get away with a 12-week build training plan, right? Like if you're maintaining fitness throughout the year, you could certainly get away with that. But even me as an experienced ultra runner, I usually put myself into a 22 week plan at the start of the year. So I have the opportunity to put a little bit of speed work in that plan as well. Do a really slow and gradual build, and I think that's super comfortable. As far as what the training looks like, if you read Jason Koop's book, Training Essentials for Ultra Running, there is some really hard data around how much you have to run every week to finish ultra distances comfortably. And for the 50K and 50-mile distance, the bare minimum, this is bare minimum to finish, 6 hours a week, time on feet running. Whew, don't trip. And then if you're doing 100K, and I should say 6 hours for your peak 3 weeks of training, okay? So that's not the entire training cycle. That's in what's called your peak training block. Then if you're going to try to do 100K or 100 miler, that bumps up to 9 hours time on feet. Again, this is bare minimum to finish, and that's during your peak training block. And I'm going to explain more about what a peak training block is, so you understand what that means. But that should give you kind of an idea. So if you're looking to do a 50K, you're looking at on average an hour a day of running if you just want to finish, which I think it's more approachable and doable than a lot of people might think. So hopefully this maybe sets your mind at ease when you're thinking about, well, gosh, I feel like I'm going to be sinking multiple hours every single day. Yes, on Saturdays, you might spend a couple hours out on the trails, maybe up to 4 hours for your peak training. But beyond that, it's not going to be a massive time sink. So I hope that's helpful. Okay, so let's talk about elevation gain. You'll remember that I said that one of the main things that makes ultras different from road running and road marathons is the fact that you're doing a lot of climbing. And what I always recommend is to look at the elevation gain of the ultra that you've picked, and just keep in mind in your head that during your peak training weeks, you want to be ideally seeing the elevation gain that you're going to see during the race over the course of the week cumulatively, right? So same thing for miles that I just mentioned. And, I get a lot of questions from folks that are like, well, I don't live in a hilly area, or I don't have a ton of trail access. What do I do? Recommendations, little hacks you could do. Number one, if you have any kind of a hill, doing hill repeats, super helpful. Number two, hiking on a treadmill. I recommend this for everybody, even if you live in an area with trail access and hill access. I did treadmill hiking. Generally speaking, you want to hike for at least 20 minutes at a 15% grade or higher once a week for that to be effective. So I highly recommend treadmill hiking. And then also the Stairmaster. I personally love the Stairmaster. I like to have a full day in my training plan, which is just a climbing day. I'll do a treadmill hike and a Stairmaster climb for, 20, 30 minutes. And I find that super, super effective in getting the elevation gain. The last idea, if you live in like a city, something like that, is to actually use a parking deck and run up and down, or use a staircase in an office building. There's all kinds of ways that folks can be creative, believe me. Tons of ultra runners live in cities. Tons of ultra runners don't live near trails. So there are definitely ways that you can get creative and add elevation gain to your plan. Now, the one thing I will say is that if you don't have trail access or like a hill outside, just treadmill hiking and just doing the Stairmaster aren't going to get you practice on the downhills, which could actually be a lot harder. Those are eccentric contractions, which could be harder on your legs. So in order to prepare for that, definitely recommend don't skip leg day. You're going to want to do a lot of leg strength work. Make sure that your quads are strong. Make sure, ideally, that you're working with a personal trainer or a PT to give you a plan that is right-sized for you. So those are my tips, training for vert in your race. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about nutrition and hydration, because I know this could be really tricky. You're probably curious. I said, hey, you want to carry a pack for your food? What does that look like? Well, first I'm going to say it is, very particular to you as an individual, and testing things out on your training runs is the number one recommendation I have. But specifically, when it comes to eating, generally speaking, you want to make sure that you're taking in food before 90 minutes into your run. Because that's the time when your energy stores are depleted, so glycogen stores in your muscles. And generally speaking, again, like taking in, if you're not working super hard, taking in something like 150, 200 calories an hour may work for you, but this all depends on your body weight. How hard are you working? And I'll go into a whole description of nutrition in great detail. Let's talk about electrolytes, and because I think this is just almost in some ways a little bit more important, and I get more questions on electrolytes. There are ways that you could actually test for this yourself. with products that exist on the market. There's something called the NIX biosensor, where you could test your sweat rate loss and the electrolyte concentration. So how salty of a sweater are you? Overall, of course, everybody needs electrolytes, but the amount that you need is totally different. Depends, who you are as an individual, depends on genetics. Some of these things vary by temperature. Of course, your sweat rate's going to increase when it's hotter out. So if you could test for that, that's probably the best way. But otherwise, just know that it's very important that you do take electrolytes, whether that is salt pills, which you can find on Amazon. They come in, or salt tablets, which are chewable, or you're putting some kind of electrolyte mix in your drink. Generally speaking, most people lose between 700 and almost 1,500 milligrams of sodium an hour. So that's a lot of sodium, and you just want to make sure that you're getting enough, but you could also overdo it, so you want to be careful with that too. Make sure to double check the food that you're eating and see, like, oh gosh, well, this food also has sodium, so when you're doing your calculations for your ultra, make sure that you're accounting for the salt that you're taking in your food. So those are really high level. Again, I'll produce another video that goes into a lot more depth on this. Also, my written guide goes into a ton more depth, so if you want more details on nutrition and hydration, definitely check that out. Okay, so let's talk about pacing, right? Pacing for trail and ultra running is obviously a little bit different than road. I know when I started, my comfortable road pace was, let's say a 9-minute mile, 8:30. It's kind of stuck at 8:30s forever. Anyways, when you're on trail, you've got to slow down, and that's because there's so many things that are going to be spiking your heart rate. Like how technical the trail is, obviously climbing, even downhills, right? Eccentric contractions on your legs are tough. So slowing down is definitely going to be part of your plan. And how to know what speed is the right speed for you is, doing the talk test, right? Like, can you go out and have a conversation with somebody else that you're running with? That's usually an indication that you're in zone 2, which is where you want to be, where you're on the trails. And when you're running your ultra especially, that should be super conversational pace. Like your heart rate might spike when you're hiking up a hill, and that's okay if it's temporary, but if it's not coming down, that's going to be a problem. So when we're thinking about pacing for trail and ultras, again, a little bit different than road, you're probably going to be slower, and that's okay. But it's also going to be comfortable. I found that because of that, running with other people is more enjoyable. I could actually hold down a conversation. So I think that there's also good things about that. And so I encourage you, next time you go out, if you're going to try a trail run, do the talk test and just see, much like me, you tell I'm hiking at altitude. I'm struggling to breathe and talk, but I'm still in zone 2. So really great way to tell that you're doing this right. So hopefully that's helpful and gives you an idea of how to pace yourself. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about tapering. I thought this was a beautiful place to film this content because I'm at Chasm Lake overlooking Long's Peak in Colorado, which is just such a beautiful, amazing location. So, what a better place than to talk a little bit about preparing yourself for race day and what you can do to just mentally prepare yourself and physically prepare yourself. So, I want to talk first about tapering. Um, when it comes to a taper, you're going to want to start about 2 weeks out from your race day, and you're going to want to cut volume about 50% that first week. Um, the reason for this, again, you just came out of a really big training block, and your body needs to recover to actually realize those gains. Reason number 2 for this is that you actually can't gain any new fitness within 2 weeks of race day. So, letting your body rest and recover, realize all those new fitness gains is the best thing you could do. So, even though that 2 week taper might be really frustrating. You might be annoyed that you can't be running as much as you used to. It's a really helpful thing. And I promise you that you will feel better on race day if you do that. A few things that you could expect while you're tapering is that, you might start to feel a little bit sluggish. Your legs might feel heavy. You might gain a pound or two. I want to encourage all of you, to keep your normal routine as far as the types of trails that you're running, the days of the week that you're running, but just think about cutting them in half. Continue eating normally too, right? I don't want you to start cutting back on calories. This isn't the time to do that because, again, your body's trying to recover from the really big peak training block that you just had. So you definitely want to make sure that you're fueling properly and, again, taking advantage of the rest. And even though you might feel like crap, you might be grumpy, your legs might feel heavy, I promise you that come race day, you're going to feel sharp and ready. Finally, when we look at the week of race day, what you want to be structuring your week like is just a couple what we call kind of shakeout runs. So, like these 2 to 3 mile runs where you might integrate some strides. So, a couple pickups, a couple accelerations. And by that, I don't mean all out sprints. I just mean like a quick little burst of energy to help you feel fresh and sharp when you get out there on race day. It's super helpful. I usually recommend doing that like Tuesday of race week, take Thursday off entirely. Friday, do a little shakeout run with some strides, maybe some uphill strides, and you're going to feel so good race morning. It's going to surprise you. I promise you. Okay, so I want to talk about one of my favorite topics when it comes to prepping for your race day, and that's mental prep. I coach all of my clients to take a lot of time leading up to the race day and really visualize yourself on the course and visualize all of it, right? Like the highs, the lows, the goods and the bads of the race. Just imagine yourself being strong on the climbs or getting over the biggest climbs in the race, feeling strong on the downhills. Imagine yourself not cramping. Imagine how you're going to feel when you cross the finish line and maybe you see your friends and family. There's so much science that proves that this visualization technique is so helpful. Professional athletes use it. So definitely, one of the best things that you can do to prepare for your race day is to really go through it, daydream about it in your brain and visualize it. And I promise you that you'll be more confident when you're out there on race day. Then, of course, some other practical tips how to prepare for the big day, right? Laying out all of your gear the night before, maybe even a couple days before. If you happen to have a drop bag, which is a bag where you could put extra gear, an extra pair of socks, whatever, make sure that you're thinking about that a couple days ahead. I don't know how you like to pack for vacations. I like to pack far in advance so I could kind of go over everything again and again and make sure that I'm not forgetting anything. So this is super critical when you're prepping for race day. Get your pack ready early, get your mind ready early, and you're going to feel ready to go. So just a few more things to talk about when it comes to race day. Things that I like to do to prepare. Of course, looking on the race website, you should be able to look at a course map, see where all the aid stations are, and come up with your fueling strategy, right? It's not really practical that you're going to be able to carry all the nutrition that you need throughout the course of your race. So you're going to probably have to rely on aid stations. So check out and see, do they plan to have granola bars or chips or cookies? And what do you know is a safe food for you to eat? Also, check out the liquid calories and what brand they use. I don't like a lot of the brands of liquid carbs like Tailwind and Heed. So check out what the race is going to have so you could plan what do you need to carry in your pack versus what you can rely on the aid stations for. And of course, studying the course, having an idea in your head, where the big climbs are is not a bad idea. I do know some people that actually prefer to go in a little bit blind so they don't overthink the climbs. So think about your own psychology there and what works best for you. And then, of course, like think about family, think about crew, think about a drop bag. Who do you want to be at the finish line? When do you think you're going to finish? And of course, if you're working with a coach, they'll be able to help you get a pretty good idea of what the finish times are. But another hack for that is, of course, to look back at prior race results so you can see generally what the spread is, how fast people finish it, or also look at the Strava route. If you could find the race on Strava on somebody's profile who happens to be public, it's another great way to get an idea of how long the course might actually take you. So I hope those are really helpful tips to help you prepare for your first ultra. Again, ultimately, when it comes to race day, pacing is super important. We haven't talked about this a ton, but all of your training runs, 80% of your training should be at a comfortable pace, conversational running pace. And a great way to test that, honestly, is to run with a running group. So you have people to talk to. You can kind of check yourself like, ooh, I'm going a little bit too hard right now. I can't hold down a conversation. If you hold that pace or even slower, you should be able to finish happy. And going into the ultra itself, absolutely keep that in mind. Your pace should be conversational. Think zone 2 training for those of you who are familiar with that. And you'll have a very comfortable race. You're not going out there going out at a tempo pace when you're racing. So these are some top tips to keep in mind for race day. I mean, at the end of the day, you want to go out there and you want to have fun, right? You've put in all of the work. I hope you enjoyed the journey because that's really the most important part of this, right? You deciding to run an ultra is something that you're doing for you. I mean, maybe you're doing it to inspire your family, you're doing it for your kids, you're doing it for your parents. But it's just such an incredible accomplishment. And I just give you kudos for being curious about this crazy sport. And, enjoy the training, enjoy beautiful trails like the one that I'm on here today. Get out there, use it as an excuse to travel somewhere. I think there's so many ways that ultra running can truly enrich your life. I hope it's fun for you and not a drag. If it is a drag, please reconsider. Find a way to make it fun. Find some people to run with. Looking on meetup.com and Facebook are great ways to find running groups. Of course, following pages like my own and other great runners who are sharing their stories. I just want to be here to help you and to inspire you, to help you find joy on the trails. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this helpful. Happy running.